Elias Ward had learned that space stations never truly slept. The lights dimmed, the corridors quieted, but something always hummed. Engines, air recyclers, distant voices carried through metal. It reminded him of Earth cities at night, awake even when pretending to rest. He stood alone in Observation Hall 7, hands clasped behind his back, staring through a wide crystal window into a sea of stars. The stars here looked sharper than they did from Earth, like someone had scrubbed the universe clean. This station, Kripri Array, floated on the edge of neutral space, a place where humans and dozens of alien species met without flags or fleets. Elias was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was an anthropologist, chosen because he asked careful questions and listened longer than most people talked. That was how humanity now introduced itself to the galaxy. Not with weapons, but with curiosity. He was reviewing notes on his wrist display when the station's soft chime sounded. "Elias Ward," said a calm, synthetic voice. "You are requested in the Sapphire Chamber." Immediate attendance advised. His brow creased. The Sapphire Chamber was not a meeting room. It was a royal suite. He exhaled slowly. Of course it is. Minutes later, he walked through halls that curved like flowing water, architecture shaped by a species that preferred elegance over straight lines. The air felt warmer here, scented faintly with something floral and unfamiliar. 2 attendants waited at the chamber doors, tall and silver-eyed, their posture formal but not hostile. "The Queen awaits," one said. Elias nodded, reminding himself to breathe, and stepped inside. The chamber glowed with soft blue light. The walls were translucent, shifting gently like shallow waves. At the center stood Queen Sharian of the Aurelian Concord, ruler of a civilization older than human writing. Her form was humanoid, but refined in ways Elias struggled to put into words. Taller, poised, with movements that seemed measured down to the smallest gesture. She studied him, silently. "Human Elias Ward," she said at last. Her voice carried no echo, yet filled the room. "You volunteered for cross-species evaluation?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Elias replied. "Cultural and psychological compatibility studies only." "That is correct," she said. "This evaluation will occur tonight." He hesitated. "Tonight? Yes." Her gaze did not waver. "You may refuse." Elias considered that for a long second. Refusing a royal request was allowed here, in theory. In practice, it could end his career. Worse, it could signal fear, something humans were trying hard not to project. "I consent," he said carefully, "as long as the terms remain non-harmful." The Queen inclined her head.
"They will." That should have comforted him. Somehow, it did not.
The experiment began with conversation. They sat across from one another, no barriers, no screens. Sharian asked questions that moved in strange directions, not just about human history, but about regret, about loneliness, about what Elias dreamed of when he slept. He answered honestly, surprised by how easy it felt. She listened with full attention, something Elias rarely experienced even among his own people. When he spoke of Earth oceans, she asked about the feeling of waves against skin. When he spoke of human laughter, she asked why it happened even during sorrow. Hours passed without him noticing. At some point, the formal distance faded. The Queen's posture softened, her voice lowered, not in volume, but in intensity. "This concludes the cognitive phase," she said. Elias nodded, though he felt unsteady. "And the rest?" She regarded him with an expression he had learned meant curiosity layered with caution. "The remaining phase is experiential." He swallowed. "Experiential how?" "Direct," she replied. "Shared presence, emotional resonance, intimate proximity." His heart thudded. The briefing materials had been vague, very vague. "I want to be clear," Elias said. Humans experience intimacy differently than most species. So we have observed, the Queen said. That is why you were selected.
The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but heavy with meaning.
Elias thought of all the committees, the ethics boards, the documents he had signed. None of them had prepared him for this moment. Still, he reminded himself why he was here. First contact was not about comfort. It was about trust. I agree, he said quietly. The lights dimmed further. What followed was not what Elias had imagined. There were no sharp sensations, no fear. Instead, there was a deep awareness, as if the room itself was listening. The Queen's presence was calm, deliberate, and strangely gentle. Emotions brushed against his thoughts. Not invading, but observing, he felt seen. For the first time in years, Elias was not performing, not representing humanity, not choosing words carefully. He was simply himself. And somehow, that was enough. When it ended, he felt exhausted but peaceful, like waking after a long, meaningful dream. The Queen stepped back, her expression unreadable. Rest, she said. The evaluation is complete. Elias dressed and bowed, unsure what else to do. Thank you, Your Majesty. She watched him leave without a word. He did not sleep well. His dreams were filled with shifting colors and distant stars folding in on themselves. When he finally woke, it was to the sound of alarms, not loud alarms. Formal ones. A message flashed across his display. Human Elias Ward. Remain where you are. Security is en route. His stomach dropped. Moments later, attendants arrived. More than before, their expressions tight. Is something wrong? Elias asked. For your safety, one replied. Please comply. They escorted him not to a holding cell, but to a private chamber, guarded by members of the royal court. That was worse. Much worse. What's happening? Elias asked again. No, one answered. Across the station, in the sapphire chamber, Queen Sharian stood before an ancient console, its surface lighting up with symbols no longer taught outside the royal line. Advisors crowded behind her, their voices sharp and overlapping. This must be an error. The system has never produced a false positive. A human cannot qualify. Sharian raised one hand and the room fell silent. She stared at the result hovering before her. Royal bond established status. Irreversible. Her chest tightened. The experiment had not been designed to do this. It was meant to observe, to measure, to understand humanity at its edges. Instead, it had reached into something her people barely remembered. An old law. An older instinct. Compatibility not just of body or mind, but of future. She turned to her advisors. Seal the data, she ordered. And bring the human under protection. Your Majesty, one protested. If the council learns, they will learn, she said. Soon. On the other side of the station, Elias sat alone, staring at his hands, trying to understand how one night meant to build understanding had somehow turned into silence and guards and locked doors. He felt no regret, only confusion. And somewhere deep in the station's ancient systems, protocols long unused began to wake. The stars outside burned on, unaware that something small and human had just shifted the balance of an empire. Elias Ward had been waiting for answers for 6 hours. Time moved strangely inside the guarded chamber. There were no windows, only smooth, pale walls that curved inward, designed to calm rather than confine. A low table provided food that tasted carefully adjusted for human biology. Water was always fresh. Everything was polite. Everything was controlled. That was what worried him. He paced slowly, then stopped, then paced again. No one had explained why he was under protection, or why protection felt so much like isolation. Every attempt to contact the human embassy ended with the same response. Please remain calm. Discussions are ongoing, Discussions about what? Finally, the door opened without warning. Queen Sharian entered alone. She wore no crown, no ceremonial markings. She looked different from the night before, not weaker, but burdened, as if the weight of centuries rested on her shoulders.
Elias straightened instinctively. Your Majesty. She raised a hand.
No formalities. Not now. That alone made his heart beat faster. She studied him for a long moment, as if seeing him again for the first time. Not as a subject, not as a participant, as something else. You are confused, she said. Yes, Elias replied honestly, and a little concerned. That is reasonable. She moved closer, stopping at a respectful distance. What occurred between us last night activated a royal protocol older than my people's recorded history. Elias frowned. I don't understand. You were never meant to, she said softly. Humans were classified as observers, not variables. She touched the air, and a holographic pattern appeared between them. Symbols unfolded slowly, ancient and complex. My species, she continued, does not choose rulers by blood alone. Long ago, we learned that stability does not come from inheritance, but from balance. Balance of what? Elias asked. Mind, emotion, adaptability, future potential. The symbols rearranged themselves, forming a single glowing mark. The experiment was designed to test whether humans could emotionally synchronize with us. No species ever has.
Elias felt a chill. But I did? Yes, Sharian said.
Completely. He ran a hand through his hair. Your Majesty, I'm just one human. That, she said, is precisely the problem. She explained slowly, choosing words that translated cleanly into human understanding. The bond the system detected was not romantic in the human sense. It was not about desire or attachment. It was about compatibility at a level her people rarely reached anymore. Her species had evolved past chaos, past emotional extremes. In doing so, they had also lost flexibility. They endured, but they did not change. Humans, on the other hand, changed constantly. You adapt under stress, she said. You form meaning from uncertainty. You connect emotionally without losing individuality. Elias shook his head. That's not unique. We fail all the time. Yes, she agreed. And yet you continue? She let the hologram fade. The system interpreted our interaction as the establishment of a royal compliment. His breath caught. A what? A co-regent? She said simply. A stabilizing counterpart to the crown? The room felt suddenly too small. You can't be serious, Elias said. I didn't agree to that. No, Sharian said. And neither did I. Silence settled between them. The council will convene within the next cycle, she continued.
They will demand formal acknowledgement. Elias stared at the floor, mind racing.
What happens to me? You will not be harmed,
she said firmly.
But you will be scrutinized, studied, questioned. Like a lab sample, he muttered. Her expression tightened. I will not allow that. He looked up at her. Why? Because, she said, you are not an object, and because the bond is not one-sided. That admission seemed to cost her something. Elsewhere on the station, news traveled fast. Alien delegates whispered in curved halls. Human diplomats demanded explanations they were not yet allowed to receive. Data analysts ran simulations that refused to produce sensible outcomes. A human, bonded to the queen. Impossible. And yet the ancient systems did not lie. When Elias was finally escorted to the council chamber, the room was filled with beings of many forms. Tall, short, scaled, luminous. All eyes turned toward him. He felt very human in that moment. Fragile, soft, unarmored. He did not bow, not because of defiance, but because no one had told him to. Queen Sharian stood at the center dais. "This session is called to order," she said. A counselor stepped forward. "Your Majesty, confirm the report."
"I confirm it," she replied.
A ripple passed through the chamber. "A human cannot serve as royal complement," another voice said. "The law was written for our kind. The law was written for survival," Sharian answered, "not pride." Elias listened, trying to follow. His name came up often, his species more so. "The human does not understand our ways." "Then teach him," one counselor said. "Or remove him," another suggested. The word remove made Elias's stomach twist, even though no threat followed it. Queen Shari raised her hand again. Silence fell. "The bond was not forced," she said. "It was not manipulated. The human consented to evaluation, as did I." All eyes turned to Elias. He swallowed, then spoke. "I never meant to interfere," he said, voice steady despite his fear. "I came here to learn, to help our species understand each other." The translators carried his words perfectly.
"I don't want power," he continued. "I don't want status.
"I don't want to change your people." A pause. "But if understanding us means listening," he added, "then I'm willing to do that." The chamber was quiet. One counselor leaned forward.
"You would speak for us?" "No," Elias said. "I would speak with you." Something shifted then.
Not agreement, not acceptance. Interest. The council did not decide that day. Instead, they ordered observation. Elias was neither imprisoned nor freed. He was placed under royal guest status, a category that had not been used in generations. That night he stood again at a window, stars burning bright beyond the glass. Queen Sharian joined him.
"You did well," she said. "I just told the truth," Elias replied.
She studied him. "That is not common in this chamber." He smiled faintly. "It is among humans, sometimes." She was quiet for a long time. "My people fear change," she said finally. "They fear what you represent." "What do I represent?" Elias asked. She looked at him, silver eyes reflecting starlight. "A future that does not look like our past." Elias felt the weight of that settle on him. He was one human, far from Earth, standing at the center of something he never asked for. And yet, for the first time since arriving in space, he felt certain of one thing. Humanity had not been invited here by chance. They had been noticed. And the galaxy was beginning to realize why. Elias Ward woke before the station lights shifted to morning mode. He lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the habitat. Since being named a royal guest, his quarters had changed. The room was larger, softer, designed to feel open instead of enclosed. There was a window now, showing a slow river of stars. It should have felt like comfort. Instead, it felt like a spotlight. He sat up and rubbed his face. Somewhere beyond these walls, the council was watching, studying his words, his habits, his reactions. He was not a prisoner, but he was not free either. A soft tone sounded near the door. "Enter," Elias said. The door slid open, and a tall attendant stepped inside. "The Queen requests your presence in the outer court." Elias nodded. "Now?" "Yes." That single word carried weight. As he walked through the curved halls, he noticed how often he was noticed. Conversations paused. Eyes followed. Not hostile, but curious, like he was a question no one had expected to ask. The outer court was vast and open, its ceiling transparent, showing a distant sun, wrapped in faint rings. Queen Sharian stood near the center, speaking quietly with several advisors. When she saw Elias, she dismissed them with a gesture. You are adjusting, she said as he approached. It was not a question.
I'm trying, Elias replied. That may be enough, she said.
She guided him toward a low platform overlooking the court. Below them, groups of citizens moved in careful patterns, their interactions calm, efficient, and controlled.
My people are watching you, Sharian said, not because of what you did, but because of what you might change.
Elias frowned.
I don't plan to change anyone.
That, she said, is also why they watch. She turned to face him fully. The council has agreed on the next phase. His chest tightened. Which is, you will be seen, she said. Not hidden, not isolated.
You will participate?
In what way? In governance, she replied. Elias stared at her.
You want me to help rule?
No, she said. I want you to help listen. That sounded safer. Slightly. Throughout the cycle, Elias was brought into meetings, not to speak first, but to observe. He sat beside Queen Sharian as disputes were discussed. Trade disagreements, resource allocation, cultural misunderstandings between allied species. At first, he said nothing. Then, during a discussion about a minor colony struggling with migration limits, Elias raised his hand slowly. I have a question, he said. The room went still. The queen inclined her head. You may speak. Elias chose his words carefully. Has anyone asked the colony why they are leaving? A counselor blinked.
The data shows environmental decline.
Yes, Elias said. But people don't leave homes just because numbers change. They leave because they feel unheard. There was silence, not rejection. Consideration. The council ordered a direct inquiry, not a survey, a conversation. Later, as they walked together, Sharian looked at him differently.
You disrupted the process, she said. I didn't mean to, Elias replied.
I know, she said. That is what makes it disruptive. Words spread quickly. The human did not command. He questioned. He did not judge. He wondered. He did not offer solutions. He invited them. Some counselors resisted. Others grew curious. Citizens began requesting to observe sessions where the human was present. His presence changed the tone of debate, softening rigid positions without force. Elias felt overwhelmed. Every small success made the weight heavier. Every nod of approval made the future more uncertain. One evening, he found Sharian alone in a quiet garden chamber. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly around them. You're tired, she said. So are you, Elias replied. She smiled faintly. That is true. He hesitated, then spoke. Why me? There are billions of humans.
She looked at the glowing leaves. You are not special because you are perfect.
You are special because you are typical. He laughed softly. That's not comforting. It should be, she said.
It means your people are not anomalies. They are patterns.
She turned to him. The bond did not choose you alone. It chose humanity through you.
That thought settled deep inside him. The next council session was different.
Queen Sharian stood before the assembly and spoke words no one expected. The royal compliment will be formally recognized.
A wave of reaction moved through the chamber.
Elias felt his heart pound. He stepped forward instinctively. Your Majesty, she raised a hand. This does not make you a ruler. Then what does it make me? Elias asked quietly. A mirror, she said.
She addressed the council. He will not command fleets.
He will not sign decrees. His role is advisory, relational, and temporary. Temporary? A counselor asked. Yes, she said, because stability must learn to change, not depend. The vote followed. Slow, careful, not unanimous, but it passed. That night, news reached Earth. Human diplomats stared at screens in disbelief. Media outlets struggled to find language. Citizens argued, joked, worried, and wondered all at once. A single human, named Royal Compliment. Elias watched the message from his quarters, hands trembling slightly. I didn't want this, he whispered. Sharian stood beside him. Neither did I. He looked at her. Do you regret it? She considered. I regret how long it took us to notice you. The stars outside burned bright, indifferent, and endless. Elias understood now that part 1 of his journey had been survival. Part 2 had been understanding. This part was something else. Responsibility. Not for power. Not for control, but for connection. And that, Elias realized, was the most human burden of all. The station changed after the council's decision. It was not loud or dramatic. There were no alarms or announcements. Instead, the change came quietly, like a shift in gravity that only became clear when people started walking differently. Elias felt it the moment he stepped into the public corridor. People no longer only watched him. Some nodded. Some paused, unsure whether to speak. A few approached with careful curiosity, asking simple questions about Earth, about human families, about why humans smiled when nervous. Elias answered as best he could. He did not feel like a symbol. He felt like a translator between two ways of being. His days filled quickly. Sharian brought him into sessions that went beyond policy, cultural councils, educational forums, meetings with younger citizens who had grown restless in a society that prized calm above all else. They asked him strange questions. Why do humans tell stories that make them sad? Why do humans argue even when they agree? Why do humans forgive mistakes instead of correcting them? Elias did not always have clean answers. Because we feel first, he said once, and understand later. That answer spread through the station. Some liked it, some did not. Not everyone welcomed his presence. A faction within the council believed the royal compliment role was a mistake. They argued that emotional flexibility was the same as instability, that humanity's strength was also its danger. Elias was aware of them, even if no one said their names aloud. One cycle, during an open forum, a senior counselor spoke directly to him.
You speak of connection,
The counselor said.
yet your species fractures often.
Wars, divisions, internal conflict. Elias nodded.
That's true. Then why should we trust your perspective? Elias took a breath, because we know what happens when we stop listening to each other. The room was quiet.
We fail, Elias continued. A lot. But we also learn. And we write those lessons into our stories, our laws, our memories. The counselor studied him. And if we fail? Elias met their gaze.
Then you'll still be alive to try again. That answer unsettled many, but it stayed with them.
Sharian watched these exchanges carefully. She rarely intervened. When she did, it was subtle, a rephrased question, a pause where silence could work. Late one cycle, she invited Elias to walk with her through the oldest section of the station. The halls there were narrower, less polished. The walls held faint carvings, worn by time.
This was built before our current government, she said. Before the Concord.
Elias traced a symbol with his eyes. It feels warmer. It was, she said. Back when emotion guided us more than balance. Why did you change? Elias asked. Sharian stopped walking. Because emotion nearly ended us. She looked at him. We learned control, but we forgot growth. They stood in silence. Do you think your people would make the same choice again? She asked. Elias thought of Earth. its mistakes, its beauty. Yes, he said, and no. She smiled slightly.
That sounds like humans. As Elias's influence spread, small changes followed. Meeting spaces were redesigned to allow face-to-face seating.
Citizens were encouraged to speak without pre-written statements. Educational programs began, including emotional history, not just data. None of this was ordered. It was adopted.
The galaxy noticed.
Observers from other species arrived, curious about the shift. Reports described the Concord as less efficient, but more alive. That description worried some. During a private session, Sharian asked Elias a question she had avoided until now. If the council demands permanence, she said, what will you do? Elias froze. Permanence? A permanent crown, she clarified.
Shared rule.
He shook his head immediately. I can't. You could, she said. I shouldn't, he replied. Humans don't rule others well, especially not alone. She studied him.
You would refuse?
Yes. Her shoulders eased just slightly.
That, she said, is why they would want you.
Supporters argued that Elias represented a future where the conquered could survive change. Critics warned that dependence on an outsider would weaken their identity. Elias felt the strain in his body. Sleepless cycles, long walks that never seemed long enough. One cycle, he received a message from Earth. A recorded message from his sister. You look tired, she said gently.
But proud. Whatever you're doing out there, don't forget who you are.
He watched it twice. That night, Elias requested to address the council again. The chamber filled slowly. Tension hung in the air. He stood beside Shireen, not above anyone.
I need to say something, Elias began.
You don't know us, a counselor started.
I do, Elias said quietly.
If I'm part of this,
He looked around the room.
I won't be your king, he said.
Not now. Not ever. Murmurs rose.
But I won't leave either,
He continued.
not yet.
I'm here to help you remember how to talk to each other, Elias said, not to decide your future for you. He turned to Sharian. That includes you. She met his gaze, eyes bright. This bond, Elias said, should not crown me. It should challenge you. The council did not respond immediately, but something important happened. They listened. After the session, Sharian walked with Elias back to the garden chamber. You refused a crown, she said. I refused a shortcut, Elias replied. She stopped beside a glowing tree.
My people are changing because of you.
No, Elias said.
They're changing because they're ready.
She looked at him with something close to gratitude. Outside the station, the galaxy shifted its attention. Humanity was no longer just a young species among many. It was becoming something else. A reminder. That strength did not always come from control. And that sometimes the most powerful influence was simply the courage to remain human. The day the crown was prepared, Elias did not know it at first. The station moved, as it always had. Lights shifted gently. Citizens followed their routines. But beneath the calm, something waited, like a held breath. Elias spent the early cycle in the learning chamber, speaking with a group of young Concord citizens. They asked him about Earth again, about small things this time. Food shared during celebrations. Songs sung even when voices were not good. Why humans kept objects that had no use but strong memories. Because memory makes us who we are, Elias said. Even the painful ones. When the session ended, the students bowed in the Concord way. Hands to chest, eyes lowered. One of them hesitated, then smiled at him. A small, unsure smile. Elias smiled back. That was when he felt it. Not fear. Not excitement. Completion.
An attendant approached him quietly. "The Queen requests your presence." "All councils are assembled." Elias nodded. "I'll come." As he walked, he remembered his first day on the station, how small he had felt, how temporary. Now, the halls felt familiar, not because he owned them, but because he understood them. The council chamber was full. Every seat was occupied. Observers from allied species stood along the outer ring. The air felt heavy, but not tense, expectant. Queen Shadian stood alone at the center. She was wearing the crown. It was not large. It did not shine. It looked old, shaped from material Elias did not recognize, smooth and unmarked, a symbol, not a decoration. Elias stopped a few steps from her. "Your Majesty," he said. "Elias Ward," she replied. "Thank you for coming." The counselor who had opposed him most stepped forward. "This assembly has reached a conclusion," the counselor said. "One that follows law, tradition, and necessity." Elias felt his chest tighten. Sharian spoke before the counselor could continue. "You will not be crowned," she said to Elias. A ripple passed through the chamber. Elias blinked. "I won't." "No," she said, "because a crown is not what this bond requires." She turned to the council.
For generations, we believed stability meant stillness, she said.
"We believed control meant survival," she gestured toward Elias. "This human did not bring us answers. He brought us questions, and we remembered how to ask them." She removed the crown from her head. Gasps echoed softly. "This crown," she continued, "will no longer represent authority alone." She stepped forward and placed the crown on a pedestal between them. "It will represent balance." Elias stared at it, heart racing. The counselor spoke again.
"Then, what is the human's role?"
Sharian looked at Elias. "He is not king." She faced the assembly. "He is witness." The word settled over the room.
"Witness to our choices," she said, "to our failures."
"To our growth." She turned back to Elias. "You once said this bond should challenge us," she said.
"It has, and now it must challenge you as well."
Elias took a slow breath. "What are you asking me to do?" "Stay," she said.
"Not forever. Not in power. But long enough to help us finish changing."
Elias thought of Earth.
Of his sister's message. Of the billions of humans who would never know his name, but might feel the effects of this moment.
He stepped forward. "I'll stay," he said.
"As long as you keep choosing for yourselves." Charrier smiled. Not as a queen, but as a person. The council voted. Not on a crown. On a future. The decision was unanimous. In the cycles that followed, the galaxy adjusted. The Concord revised its treaties, adding something new to every agreement. Cultural exchange not as data transfer, but as lived experience. Humans were invited, not as rulers or saviors, but as participants. Other species began doing the same. They did not copy humanity. They learned from it. Elias became less visible over time. That was intentional. He trained mediators. He helped design spaces where disagreement could exist without fear. When conflicts arose, people asked not, "What is efficient?" but, "What is fair?" Shadian ruled differently now. Not softer, deeper. She and Elias spoke often, sometimes about policy, sometimes about nothing important at all. Those conversations mattered just as much. One cycle, as Elias prepared to return to Earth, he stood again in Observation Hall 7. The stars were just as sharp as before. Sharian joined him quietly. "You will be missed," she said.
"I'll visit," Elias replied. "Humans are bad at staying away."
She nodded. "So I have learned." She paused. "The crown will remain unused. Elias looked at her.
That's a big change.
It is, she said. But change no longer frightens us. They stood together, watching the universe turn. When Elias finally boarded the transport, there was no ceremony, no titles, just a quiet farewell. As the ship pulled away, the station did not feel smaller. It felt connected. On Earth, news analysts would argue for years about what had really happened. Some would call it politics. Others would call it luck. Elias would call it something simpler. Listening. And somewhere in the vast silence between stars, humanity was no longer just a species that reached outward. It was a species that helped others remember how to reach back.